UFC play-by-play commentator Jon Anik revealed on his podcast, the Anik and Florian podcast, that the UFC fan base has had him ponder his future in MMA. The latest wave of negativity stemmed from UFC 297, more specifically the Dricus du Plessis-Sean Strickland fight. Many fans were critical of the split decision win for the South African. Anik prides himself on being accessible to his followers and fans, but he did say he felt a little turned off by the negativity. A few days later, Anik apologized via social media to his followers, says he needs to be more responsible on an open microphone, and then finished by saying, "On to Anaheim." In fact, I was going to read his response, but I think I covered the gist of it. Guys, what did you think of this? This kind of actually got a lot of people's attention, good and bad, a lot of support, and then also a little bit more negativity. Was Anik in any way out of line? Yay or nay, goes?
No, I don't think he was out of line at all. He didn't do it on a UFC broadcast. He did it on his own show, voicing his opinion. That's why people tune in, right? So I don't think he needs to apologize for anything. I think John will, he did apologize. He does do those types of things because he's a great guy. He loves the sport. And, anytime Jon Anik feels like he's offended or hurt anybody, he's going to say he's sorry because that's the guy he is. But I think we just kind of caught him in a very vulnerable moment, a moment where he was maybe a little overwhelmed. And that happens to all of us. And all I could say to people in that position is, look, social media, it's got a huge reach, but it doesn't mean that your circle has to have a huge reach. Your circle needs to be small and tight with people that opinions you respect, people you love, and focus on that. People that make valid points, respect you, and you respect them back. And because at the end of the day, like, you are what you answer to, right? And we get so much feedback. Not all of it's negative, a lot of it's good too. But I think you just have to kind of weed through the bad ones and start your day with positivity and try and end it with positivity. Because at the end of the day, Jon Anik's done some incredible things in our sport, and I can't imagine what it would be like to lose him. So hopefully he rethinks that and does stay around for a long time.
Mike Bond, how about you, man? What did you think of everything that transpired? And do you feel like in any way he was out of line, yay or nay?
No, I don't think he was out of line. I understand, I guess, why he apologized, because he probably felt, a lot of backlash to those comments, and you don't want to necessarily criticize the people who are supporting your work in one way or another, whether they're watching it to criticize you or to support you. But I think you just got to kind of look at this as like a human thing, right? Jon Anik had a human moment from getting a lot of negativity thrown his way, and it's hard to put that filter up at all times, right? Like, we've all been in this game for a while now. We've probably had, some bad things said about us in comments and YouTube comment sections, all these different things. And sometimes your filter doesn't deflect that as well as maybe it should have. And I think the reason Jon Anik got this, I guess, level of feedback, be it positive, negative, for making these comments is because a lot of people in the industry who were defending him, media, fighters, etc., know Jon Anik and know how hard he works. And it's a lot easier to say something about someone when you're anonymous to them, you've never met them, you're just watching them on TV or on a podcast a few hours a week. But people in this industry know how hard Jon Anik works, how much he cares about the sport. So you feel bad for him when he voices these kind of feelings about how down he maybe gets from some of the stuff he gets online. And, whether MMA has like a especially toxic fan base, all that stuff can be things we could get into. I like to think, all sports fans are this way. I cover, the NBA on the side a little bit, and you see some of this stuff too directed towards players and broadcasters and all that stuff. It happens in every sport. It's more of like a kind of situation of where we just are as society as a whole, and people having so much access to social media that it gives you free reign to say basically whatever you want on whatever platform with no repercussions. And sometimes that just takes its toll on you, man. So I don't blame him for having these feelings. I think it's okay for him to voice them. And I hope maybe some people see this and be like, hey, next time I'm about to say some horrific thing in a person's comment section, a fighter after he got knocked out because I lost this bet, and I go to their comment section and say how much they suck, things like that. Like, realize that these are humans with feelings and all this stuff. and maybe think twice before, how harsh you are on them. I get it's part of sports fandom. You want to, voice your thoughts and your frustrations, but just realize, what's coming on the other end of it. And some people do have human reactions, and you could say stay out of the comments and don't read the comments. But for Jon Anik, he is trying to be better for all of us, be better on his broadcast. And he said himself, sometimes there's things that are really positive for me, constructive criticisms that I do take away that are for the better. And he's trying to find those, but they're harder and harder to resonate with you when you're just going through a field of negativity just to find that one little bit. So we could talk about this for a long time. It is an MMA thing, a culture thing, a sports thing, all these different levels. But I guess kind of the message to go through is when you see someone like Jon, who is doing this for all the right reasons, he doesn't deserve your scorn, I don't think.
All right, Nolan, we go to you for the final take of the week. What did you think of all this? And did you think Jon was out of line in any way? Yay or nay?
No, and I mean, I think there was the clip that went around of Jon kind of speaking about this, but before that clip took place on the show, he had talked about it earlier in the podcast a bit, and he was saying the big thing for him was he likes to interact with people. He likes to, he said Joe Rogan has a huge following. He can't really obviously interact with people. DC can't really interact with people. He's like, mine's getting big, but I'd like to have conversations with people about this. So he was kind of talking about specifically people that he felt like were just there to have an argument or just to say something mean. And like Mike said, we've all seen it. People are it's a shitty part of our society and social media, but people are 10 to 20,000 times more likely to say something mean or let you screwed up than compliment you or say something nice. And I like to think that there's a lot of people out there that don't necessarily use social media to talk at all, that they're just kind of spectators, and that those people do enjoy, kind of have more of a positive viewpoint towards things. Maybe I'm naive for thinking that, but I think it was fair. I think it was open and honest. And like Mike said, or Ghost said, Jon's a good dude. He was probably just trying to smooth things over with that apology. But I think everybody gets frustrated, and that's what we saw there. And yeah, it is difficult to block out the negativity sometimes, but particularly like Mike said too with the betting, I think that's a big part of it. We see if you go to any fighter's page, like after they lose, it's just people saying you lost me money and you suck. And guys like Max Holloway, I remember going on his Instagram after he lost to Volkanovski the most recent time, and there's just people absolutely trashing him, telling him that he sucks. And it's not just burner accounts. There's people using their actual names and faces and pictures and stuff. So we could talk another 3 hours about this as within the MMA industry, outside the MMA industry. But yeah, it's obviously a pretty reoccurring theme, I think, in the social media era.
I think what happens is Jon does pour his heart into the sport, into his broadcast, and he's away from his family. He's got his 3 kids, and I think what happens is when the fight card's over, like, I want to celebrate the winners, talk about the fights, and it seems like the first thing in your feed there is some negativity, and I think that can get to someone who is doing a lot of travel. Granted, we just came off 4 weeks, and then we had the fight card in Vegas and then Toronto, but still the accumulation, right? He said he's 45 years old and he's been doing this for a long time. And then you have to travel. It was cold in Canada, and then you get to Florida and muggy, and you just can't wait to get home and be with your family. And every time you're probably in that Lincoln Town car or the cab or whatever, and you're just scrolling, man, to get to the good stuff, like he says, I want to talk about some of the tactics from the main event or what could be next or whatever, and it's just an onslaught of negativity. I think that's kind of where he's coming from. But somebody in the chat was saying, look, sometimes it feels like the media does crap on fans, and you're not wrong. And the problem is, I think a lot of times we just tend to say fans, almost insinuating like all fans. And I try and be as specific as possible. It is a 5 to 10% of vile fans, a jungle of fans that can be really, really bad. And unfortunately, they can be the loudest. But man, there's some great fans. And there's a lot of great fans, especially on our site, that listen to our podcast, to this show, that read Mike and Nolan's pieces. And we want to thank you all for doing that. And we believe in you guys. And we know that you guys are the majority. But like I say, that 5 to 10% can be pretty heavy lifting, man. at times. Just wanted you guys to know where we come from. So
And,
I'm gonna try to be
yeah,
better about saying not all fans. For sure, it's not all fans. It's a minority of fans. For the most part, MMA fans are brilliant, and the ones that go to our site, we call them junkies, man. And we refer to ourselves as junkies as well, because that's how much we love the sport. Mike, you want to say something?
No, I was just going to add on to that. I mean, we definitely, everyone, media, fans, promoters, everyone in the space could probably be better off being more positive and stuff. And like you said, a lot of good people, you see some of them in this comment section, like who are very supportive, watch the sports, follow the athletes for all the right reasons, but that vocal minority can take its toll. And my fear is, not everyone is built for this. Not everyone should be built for this. Like, we're really kind of the first generation that has had to go through years and years of this social media wave and kind of experience this type of stuff. People 20 years ago didn't have to deal with this in the same way. And my fear is just that, the people who aren't able to tolerate this for a long enough time are going to get driven out of the sport, especially good ones. Esther Lynn of MMA fighting is an example, right? Like, she's the best photographer in combat sports history, and the scorn of, fans and just the nature of this beast kind of made her tap out on this. And I'd hate to see that happen to more good people who are making this a better place with their work.
Mm-hmm. I will say this to the 5 to 10% though. Stop being a crybaby. Honestly, accept the result. Sometimes the better man or woman wins. Sometimes the better team wins. It's not rigged. In the history of sports, has there been shady stuff? Yes, but that's also a minor thing. Sports is all about the way the ref called it, the judge called it, the players, the way they played. They did their best. They're all humans. Except that I even saw some of that in the NFL. Man, I mean, that's something I think people need to reprogram themselves.
Save your hate for like something that truly warrants it, right? Like Jon Anik thinking Dricus Du Plessis won a 3-2 fight over Sean Strickland is like the most mellow take I've ever heard. I mean, I thought Dricus won. I think we talked about it last week. Most people did. It was a close fight. So like, it's not like the genesis of this was Jon Anik saying some outrageous, ridiculous thing. But as we know, Sean Strickland has very passionate fans these days. So maybe he just felt a lot of that. But yeah, people sometimes deserve to be shit on for their opinions and their bad takes. Thinking DDP won a 3-2 fight is not one of them.
Mm-hmm. The block button, the ignore button, they are your friends if you want them. I don't think I've done too many of those, but sometimes it's just like, it does help.